More on the Biden administration's response, if you can call it that, to these attacks in the Middle East. Let's bring in Tim Kennedy. He's former Army Ranger, sniper, special forces operator, and co-founder of Save Our Allies. Tim, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Right after the October 7th massacre in Israel, John Kirby and General Austin came out, and they promised Americans that they would not stand for these attacking Americans, that they would deter all the attacks. I think by then, this was about a week after October 7th, there were about 15 or 20 attacks. Well, they failed in that promise. They failed to deter those attacks. Is it fair to say that their mission has failed, that they have to look at a completely different mission now?
Well, when you talk about deterrence, deterrence is something that comes from a position of strength.
Yes.
When 9/11 happened, I think the whole entire world looked at what deterrence looks like. As we bombed people into oblivion and we went to war. When you look at World War II, or even Desert Storm, where in World War II we're dropping 2 nuclear bombs to let them know that this is now the end of the war. And then in the original Gulf Storm, Desert Storm in the Gulf War, we destroyed everybody that stood in our way. That sends a signal of deterrence. Whatever this current foreign policy is, this is not deterrence. This is just kind of status quo. Man, I'm just like checking the box. It is absolutely not deterrence from a position of strength.
What bothers a lot of folks who work for the previous administration is the Biden administration was dealt such a good hand. I mean, they had the Accords, the Abraham Accords. Donald Trump got very tough with all of our enemies to the point where we didn't have to worry as much. John Ratcliffe, the former DNI, was speaking about that last night. I just want to play a clip of that and get your reaction. Roll tape.
The Biden administration's running out of terror cells to get pushed around by in the Middle East. And of course, all of those groups that I just mentioned, Jason, they're all controlled by, funded by Iran. And what's so frustrating when you talk about, the intelligence that I've seen is, at the end of our administration, we handed the Biden administration peace in the Middle East. We handed them the Abraham Accords, and we handed them an Iran that was bankrupt, that was incapable of funding these type of terror activities.
Tim, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's fair, and it's been deadly accurate. Iran has been funding Hamas $80 million a year for the past 3 years. When the end of the last administration, when President Biden took office, things immediately changed, where they all of a sudden have billions of dollars of extra capital that they're able to invest in interests that are contrary to ours. Every single one of the terrorist cells that we're fighting, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all of them are being funded by Iran. Iran is a direct supporter and a direct enemy of ours. They're not doing it in the traditional way of like a state-on-state conflict, but in these new rules of war, we are at war with them, but we're not fighting them as they are a pure adversary, and we have to. Otherwise, just expect more of this. Accept more of our allies to be targeted by terrorist organizations or violent extremist organizations until we cut the head off the snake. And that head is Iran. To be absolutely perfectly clear, they're funding every single one of our enemies that are killing Americans right now.
Well, the administration is afraid of this escalation that they would see if there was a more direct attack on Iran itself. But we haven't seen that. We have taken Iran on through the years, going way back to Ronald Reagan, 1988, something called Operation Praying Mantis, when one of our ships was hit by a mine. We took out half of the Iranian Navy, and they didn't strike back. They cowered back in their palaces in Tehran and were afraid to attack us for the rest of the Reagan administration. Then, of course, we had Donald Trump, who also hit back hard, getting Soleimani and making it clear through the maximum pressure campaign that they weren't going to make any oil money in order to feed the terrorists and create something like what we saw on October 7th. So when we hit them hard directly, they cower more than try to hit back. They're bullies.
Yeah, I mean, that's deterrence that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's fighting back from a position of strength. And you were very right when you said that they went back to their palaces and they cowered like cowards, because that's what they are. But the war that we're currently fighting against them is a war of proxy, right? So they're supporting organizations and violent extremist organizations and terrorist cells that are attacking our allies and attacking us indirectly. until we directly attack them, until they understand that when they support these organizations that will attack us, we will hold them accountable. We're just going to have to continue to endure these exact same outcomes like October 7th.
But Tim, I'm wondering if it's not too late. That is, where they have made their clear assessment of what the Biden administration does or what they don't do. They smell blood in the water. They smell the fear. I mean, there is a lot of animal instincts in these engagements, and they smell the fear from the Biden administration. They're escalating their attacks right now as we speak.
Yeah, nonstop. They are pushing every single button, both diplomatically, via information, in cyber wars. They are doing it militarily. They are fighting us militarily right now. They're just using proxies. And they continue to push the envelope as what they can get away with until it's never too late for them to be reminded what it looks like to mess with America. We have the most powerful military to exist in the existence of human existence. That's how powerful the American military is. Every once in a while, the world needs to see what America is capable of. And right now, I cannot think of a better time to remind our adversaries that are treating us like an enemy at war, what it looks like to cross America and to hurt Americans.
Tim, there's another problem, which they haven't just been spending money on their terrorist friends. They've been spending a lot more money on their nuclear program, and they've had tens of billions of dollars to do that. They're ramping it up. Apparently, they're getting very close. What happens if they get the bomb? Now, before you answer, we don't know, but we suspect that Israel may have their hands on an atomic bomb that we don't know about. We suspect that Saudi Arabia may have. So there could be deterrence from within the Middle East. But what should we do if they have end up with a bomb and start experimenting with it?
I mean, when you look at our response, and they'll never be the peer like Russia is, but surrounding Russia are American military bases.
Yes.
It is so evident, it is so clear that if Russia crossed that proverbial line of an arms race and pushed us too far, that we would there would no longer be the existence of Russia. Iran keeps knocking on that door, and I do not want to be in that same position where we have to surround that country with military bases. We have had many, and we've been holding them for a very long time, but those bases are currently being attacked by Iran proxies via drone strikes, being violent extremist organization, terror cells that are attacking our current military bases stationed in the region. If they get a bomb, Israel will have to strike first, because Iran has said countless times that they will wipe Israel off the face of the planet. And Israel has to take them at their word. And for Israel to exist, from the river to the sea, Iran will actually make that a reality of eliminating Israel off the face of the planet.
Well, Israel knows the score. Israel clearly knows the score. They know what they cannot let their enemies get away with, even though people in the White House right now don't seem to know those red lines as much as Israel. So I agree with you. I think Israel wouldn't let it happen. But we'll wait and see. Tim Kennedy, great to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for being here.
Appreciate it. God bless.